All right, so let's start off by talking straight up. What is bullying? So, bullying is intentional, repetitive, impactful actions that usually reflect a power imbalance. Bullying is a conscious and purposeful aggressive activity intended to cause harm or fear through the threat of further hostility. Bullying always includes the intent to do harm and that power imbalance. When someone hurts or scares another person and that person has a hard time defending themselves, that can be bullying. Bullying takes different formats. There's physical aggression, actually hurting people physically. There's spreading rumors about people, which is relational aggression. Then that relational aggression includes not just spreading rumors, but exclusion, gossip, teasing in a main way, getting people to gang up on others. There's also a kind of racial bullying, bullying based on racism, as well as social media, three-way phone calls, emails. These can all perpetuate um, relational aggression. So it's important that we talk about the physical aggression, the verbal aggression, which are saying things that are, unkind, of course, but also the relational aggression. And so when I think about bullying, I really differentiate between what's physically aggressive and what's relationally aggressive. And the consequences of 24/7 social media access and online access mean that a child or teen may feel like there is no safe space for them. Bullying often has intent, which requires a preconceived plan or anticipating the target's response and being purposefully hurtful to the target. Bullying is about cruelty, and it is a traumatic event. And bullying incidents are power fights. Many kids engage in this behavior to gain social status and be cool, which then perpetuates the cycle. Often the roles of bully and victim can be fluid. Kids who feel insecure or different from others are more likely to be aggressors at one time and victims at another. So let's look at some of the statistics about bullying because they are shocking. First of all, 1 out of every 5 students in the United States reports being bullied. And these statistics come from the National Center for Educational Statistics, as well as some other places. So that's 20% of students report being bullied at some point. A higher percentage of male students than female students report being bullied physically, 6 versus 4%, whereas a higher percentage of females than male students reported being the subjects of rumors, 18 versus 9%, and being excluded from activities on purpose, 7 versus 4%. Bullied students report that bullying occurs in the following places: in the hallway or the stairwell at school, 43%, inside the classroom, 42%, in the cafeteria, 27%, outside on the school grounds, 22%, online or by text, 15%, in the bathroom or locker room, 12%, and on the bus, 8%. And these statistics are from 2019-2020, so they're pretty recent. 46% of bullied students report notifying an adult at the school about the incident, which is less than half. And what's shocking to me about these statistics is that 42% of bullied students report it happening in the classroom. Is the teacher there? I don't know. School-based bullying prevention programs have been found to decrease bullying by up to 25%. The reasons for being bullied, reported most often by students, include physical appearance, race or ethnicity, gender, disability, religion, or sexual orientation. Bullied students indicate that bullying has a negative effect on how they feel about themselves, 27%, their relationships with family and friends, 19%, their schoolwork, 19%, and their physical health, 14%. Almost 50%, 49.8% of tweens ages 9 to 12 said they experienced bullying at school and 14% of tweens shared that they experienced bullying online. So that's really interesting. So there's some online bullying for sure, but a lot of it is still happening in person. Now, what if you're an LGBTQIA youth? 43% of transgender youth have been bullied on school property, compared to 18% of cisgender youth. Transgender youth were more likely in 2019 to have been bullied in school property than reported 2 years ago. And this is from the hrc.org news about from the CDC data. 29% of gay or lesbian youth and 31% of bisexual youth have been bullied on school property, compared to 17% of heterosexual youth. So that's a lot to take in. Children with ADHD can become easier targets for bullies due to certain behaviors that they tend to exhibit, such as making impulsive comments or having impulsive actions, maybe being a little bit clumsy and not aware of their physical their body and space, not necessarily understanding personal space, perhaps violating other people's boundaries inadvertently, or struggling academically. These are kids, of course, we know, who struggle with reading social cues often, which can make them easy targets for bullies. They can have greater difficulties navigating conversation, reading body language, or identifying when they're in danger or being targeted or attacked. And they may think initially that they're being included in a conversation and not realize till the conversation has progressed that they're actually the butt of the joke. The same impulsivity, however, and social difficulties that make kids with ADHD more likely to be targets of bullying can also lead them to take out their frustrations on others and become more aggressive. As a result, they may end up becoming a bully at some point. Now, there is a huge difference between teasing and taunting, because taunting is verbal aggression. Teasing isn't. Teasing is a fun thing that you do with friends or family, people you care about. Taunting is something you do to someone you don't like. It's intended to cause harm and humiliation. It's intended to hurt them or put them down. It involves cruelty or bigotry. In teasing, you're laughing with the person. In taunting, you are laughing at the person. So I'm curious if you'd put in the comments, before we get into the situation with your kids, if any of you have been a subject of or a victim of bullying. And there are a bunch of comments here. So let's see. Megan, let's see. Okay, hi Bernadette, hi Jackie, Jennifer. Bernadette, my stepdaughter says she was bullied, now showing signs of bullying her classmates. How do I help her? We're going to get to that. Thank you, Bernadette. Jennifer, my son bullied my daughter as a result of getting bullied at school. I don't know about either case. While it was happening, the thought of this drives me mad. Oh, I'm sure. And I'm curious, you know, one of the things that happens if a child is bullied is that they can take on, they feel very disempowered, they're vulnerable, they're victimized, and if they have a younger sibling, they may act some of those things out in order to try, you know, unhealthily, to gain back a sense of power and self-esteem. It's a dangerous and vicious cycle that we want to intervene, and that's why we want to teach the difference to our kids between teasing, which is we're kind of laughing with you, versus taunting, which the intent is to harm you, make you feel bad, or put you down. Megan, my daughter was just bullied at swim practice last night. Oh, I'm so sorry. I really don't know how to help her at this point. She is so nice. I feel she's a target. Well, if your daughter has been, if you're sharing with us here, and thank you that your kids have been bullied, could you tell me a little bit about what that bullying is like? You know, what's happening in the bullying? That would be useful for me in terms of offering some support. She's 9. Oh, that's so young. Susan, don't fit in, so ignored, no friends at lunch, not included in the playground. Is this a bully experience? So one thing that I think is really important to emphasize is that girls and boys, and I'm sorry to divide the gender along those categories, but that's how the research is currently divided. They often engage in different types of aggression. So we see girls engaging in what's called, as I said earlier, relational aggression, which has to do with exclusion. Um, and rejection, as well as teasing. And boys, when in terms of bullying, they do play this sort of top dog game, which can involve taunting, but often there might be more of a physical aspect to it. There are going to be a lot of comments today, so I'll do my best. Keisha, you've been bullied. Megan, you were bullied. Tori, you were bullied. Veronica, you were bullied. Carolina, I was pinched to the point of hiding in tears under the teacher's desk because you didn't wear green on St. Patrick's Day. Gosh, people can be so mean. I was bullied in middle school because of my physical appearance, and I had no friends back then. I know it started in pre-K. Everywhere we go, she's the target. My son has been bullied by teachers even. So when I was growing up, so was I when I was growing up. A good counselor can really help children once they find someone that's a match with. Sometimes it takes a couple of counselors to find the right one that your child will click with. Just my life and opinion. I agree. I think if your child has been bullied, it is important to get some counseling to help them process what's happening and strategize some responses. It's also important to involve the school, and we're going to talk about this. Catherine, I was bullied constantly in 8th grade because I was an A student into music and not into sports. I hear that. Winnie, my grandson has been bullied because of his learning disability and other issues. Then the teacher said he was the dumbest kid in school, which made it worse. Winnie, I am reaching through the computer and giving you a hug, and I want to shake that teacher. And I hope that you reported that to the principal, because that is unacceptable in every single way. And I'm sure the teacher will deny it, but that's not okay. Your grandson would not make that up. Janice, we moved halfway across the country after my son at 7 years old was held at knife point. Oh my God. Getting off the bus. And then after we called the police, both of the children's fathers showed up at my door yelling at me. Oh, that is horrible. I'm giving you a hug also. Oh my God. Cassandra, hi. I didn't have a safe place to go. Undiagnosed ADHD definitely made it hard to make and keep friends. I felt like everyone else had the playbook for how to be a kid in the world, and I didn't. I was horrible at masking. I'm so thankful that the internet didn't exist in the 80s and the 90s. Oh, I hear on that. I was bullied at school and at home. My own family members teased me relentlessly despite knowing how it bothered me. It took me years to overcome extremely low self-esteem, negative self-talk, and an immense amount of shame. Y'all are breaking my heart. This is so heartbreaking. And yet you are survivors. You are here. We are a community. And we're going to come together to talk about how we can support each other in this and give tools for our kids. And I'm going to suggest to Annie and Attitude that we set up a webinar on this topic because it is so big. My daughter was physically bullied in 1st and 2nd grade by a boy in her class. Megan, my daughter is a vegan. Everyone she knows, a few swim mates, along with the one she thought was a friend, were saying how stupid being vegan is and how bad vegan food is. She heard it early in practice, but I heard it firsthand at the end when I came to the lane to bring a towel. I was fuming. So that's interesting. So to me, putting down veganism is definitely a form of insulting your daughter. And it is hard. It's awful as a parent to watch kids be cruel to your child. So we have to help our kids figure out when to respond and when not to respond. Teresa, my son has been bullied. How do we help them process being bullied 6 years later? That's a really good question, Jennifer, because in some ways, as you know, the good thing about 6 years later is that they have the metacognitive capacity, the self-awareness that we've talked about, to be able to look at what's happened to them and to understand their feelings, maybe to put their words to their feelings that they may not have had when they were younger. And so I think that can happen in counseling. I think writing down your experiences in a journal. I think being able to talk through with you in some way, if that's helpful, because other situations will come up that will trigger the bullying experience, and we want to be able to look at what the legacy is of that in the present, and how we might be able to unpack that legacy with them. Because I think sometimes when, and this is true for all kinds of PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, that when you're in the moment, you're in crisis management mode. You're not necessarily processing it. The processing comes later. And for kids, sometimes they can't process it. They don't have the cognitive or psychological capacity to do that at a certain age. What they need are coping strategies, love and support, and then hopefully, or a good therapist to work through some of the trauma that they've experienced. Kate, how do you teach your daughter to be resilient and handle the frenemy bullying? We're going to talk about that a little bit a little bit later. I think it's really important, though, to sort of differentiate what is personal and what's not, and who the source is. A lot of times it's really great to be able to teach kids, quit taking it personally. That the kids can be very cruel. And I would have to say that as I've aged through the decades, I feel like, particularly in these last 10 years, that it is much more acceptable socially to be mean than it has ever been before in my lifetime. And that's very distressing to me, and it's really hard for a lot of kids. Basil, hi Basil. I was bullied in school for several issues. I had weak friends in school. I was one of two non-white pupils. So you were bullied for your ethnicity. Helen, hi. I work as a counselor with kids who are neurodiverse and experience various types of bullying. It's so frustrating. It is. It's really frustrating, because the thing is, we are diverse. That's who humans are. We have neurodiversity, we have, racial or ethnic diversity, religious diversity, gender diversity, diversity of sexual orientation. That's what makes the complicated, delicious soup of our existence. But what we're seeing in trends, in mental health trends in the last, particularly 10 years, is much less tolerance for these differences and much more cruelty. With some assumption that there is this standard of how to be that I actually don't really think exists. It's just, whatever's put out, I think, perhaps in the media or by expectations of what normalcy is. Excuse me. Megan, I had something like this happen as well. I pulled her from the school. Teresa, my other son was bullied by the lunch aide. Oh my goodness. And I did take it to the principal and she did nothing. I think if you take it to the principal and they don't do something, I wonder what your tools are within your district to file a formal complaint. At 12 years old, my teacher said to me in front of the class, "What did I ever do to deserve a student as you?" Oh my God, deserve you as a student. Cut me deep, and I really hated school after that. One big positive thing, though, now is I am and have been for decades in technology, making a good living, and a lot of people that bullied me are still working in fast food and other entry jobs. 40 years later. Yeah, high five to you. You show them. They've not progressed. What's interesting, as my peers also have the same basic experience, I guess technology is a good spot for people with ADHD. It's a good spot for people who are creative thinkers. I also think that's why theater or music or the arts has so many people who are neurodivergent learners and thinkers, because there's an acceptance of creativity and difference as it's all part of the norm of being artistic. Isman, my son has been bullied since kindergarten. He's now in third grade, has not gotten any better. He won the spelling bee, oh my gosh, and represented the school in the regional competition yesterday and was not included in games because of that today. You know, kids can be cruel and they're jealous, and it hurts. It really hurts. And we as parents, we don't have a lot of control over that. You know, we can help nurture friendships with kids, with other kids who are similar to our children, so that they have a friend or two. And I think I'm going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute. Because I think that if everybody is playing a game and he's not included, is there someone that he could play with? Who could he hang out with? And if he is excluded by games, what are the teachers or the lunch aides or whoever doing to monitor that? Excuse me. My daughter is 13, Marita, and I see bullying happening every day, sometimes toward her and sometimes toward others. Teenagers can be so very mean to each other, especially girls. Extremely true. The level of bullying that some kids reach is beyond unacceptable. My daughter was told to go kill yourself. Oh my gosh. She has been jumped and punched by her so-called friends. I worry how this may impact every aspect of her life. I advocate as much as I know how. However, I don't believe the schools take it seriously enough. I think that's true. I think a lot of schools don't know what to do about this aggression. And I think that, you know, one of the things that we want to teach our kids is basic self-defense. And whether that's, you know, taking a class, if you're a girl, how you're going to defend yourself against this, or learning how to do a martial art or something like that, or learning what kinds of words you can use. The best defense against bullying is having people who you know who are your allies. And I think I'm going to talk about this right now because I know I'm not going to get through all of these comments. So why do students bully? Other people are doing it. You want to be accepted by the right or popular kids. You may want to feel stronger, smarter, or superior. If you bully, it prevents others from bullying you. It's a defensive tactic. There may be material rewards involved in somehow. So there are a lot of reasons why kids bully. But here's the thing. Bullies on their own as an individual do not have power. Bullies are empowered by bystanders. Groups create the climate for bullying and license the bully to act. Bullies don't operate without the unspoken and often unconscious support of the non-aggressive majority, the bystanders. Bystanders offer silent or active support and empower the bully. In fact, Martin Luther King Jr. said, "In the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends." We have to explain the concept of bystanders to our children and teach them to make different choices. Some ideas for this could be supporting someone who's being bullied by standing physically close to the victim, you know, some proximity, maybe challenging the aggressor, ignoring the aggressor, or asking an adult to intervene. They could show empathy for a peer by contacting them via writing, Snapchat, text, or a note, inviting them to walk to class with you, or offering to sit next to them. Your child can also try to enlist the help of other friends who dislike the bully to create a friendship of 1, 2, or 3 people to build a little bit of a coalition. Barbara Coloroso, who's written extensively about bullying, says, bystanders are the supporting cast who aid and abet the bully through acts of omission and commission. Okay, and William Burroughs says, there are no innocent bystanders. So I think it is really important for us to continue to talk about this. Why do bystanders do nothing? Fear of being hurt yourself, fear of being the next target, fear that doing something will make something worse, not knowing what to do. These bystanders often may feel tempted to participate or guilty for not acting, feel powerless to act to support the victim, or fearful for their own status or safety. So they join with the bully because they don't want to be the next one who's the target. They often feel relieved not to be the victim. One of the things that happens is in a group, there's a behavior in groups called group think. And people will go along with a group decision or action, even though it's against their individual better judgment or values. So you could ask people who are in a group of kids who are bullying someone, if you pulled them out one by one and took them aside and asked them, is this okay to do? The answer would probably be no. But together, that part of the brain shuts down and they coalesce, because people in groups are often less empathic and caring than they are individually. They also fear retaliation of the group and don't know what to do to change things. Of course, no one wants to tattle. Tattling means you're telling an adult something to get someone in trouble. Telling the bully to stop also never works. And the code of silence doesn't work either, because the bully can turn on you. That group could turn on you at any moment. So it is a profound and powerful culture of fear. How do we offer support to victims of bullying? As adults, when we see kids who are being bullied, particularly our own kids, we become triggered. It's tough to stay calm and rational, especially if you've experienced any discrimination or prejudice. But your kids need you to keep things in perspective to help them stay steady and safe. Look beyond the surface to what might be happening underneath in terms of social dynamics and situational issues that your child might not fully grasp about the aggressor. Maybe their parents are divorced. Maybe one of their parents died or is unemployed or struggling, or maybe they're struggling with academics. Help your child create a refuge and a system of self-soothing and a safety plan where they can recover and regroup. Having a safety plan to cope with these moments is the only way that's going to help get them through. And this safety plan might be in your house, at school, or with a close friend. You want to talk to the school and identify a caring adult who will offer support to your child and teen if they need a break. Let's see what some of you are saying. I've always encouraged my kids to look at the kids who are mean to them through the lens of compassion and tell them it has nothing to do with them. Most kids who are bullies have likely been bullied themselves or are hurting in some way. Their behavior, is a reflection of who they are and what their situation is. It has helped them to let things roll off. It has helped them to let things roll off their backs. Not everyone, one second. Excuse me, sorry. Not everyone has the privilege of being in a loving home. When I first became a mother, I was determined to be the parent I needed, and it is still what I strive for. Beautiful. Bernadette, I hear you. It is nonstop, it seems. It is even coming into my daughter's younger sister. Eva, hi. Oh, my 4th grade teacher pulled my hair all the time. I actually took one of my mother's pins and gave it to her for Christmas because I wanted to be liked so much. I'm 62, soon to retire. I overcame being homeless as a child, extremely poor, bullied, fatherless, and a few other things. My message to the young people out there is that life after high school can be really excellent. I told my son that this is a temporary. Many times when I was young, I thought I did not want to live, and I'm glad I stuck it out. I have had a wonderful life, and I've met wonderful people. Feel free to tell your children about my story. They are not defective. We have many great things to bring to humankind and nature. If I could, I would give them all a big hug and say, everything will be okay, hang in there. Thank you so much. I can't read your name, but thank you for saying that. Rachel, they defend themselves. If they defend themselves, then they are targeted as adults as the aggressor. Right, so that's why it's really important for for you to actually help them defend themselves, and then if they are targeted by by the adult as aggressor, to come in and say, let me tell you what's really going on, because I've taught my child to defend themselves, not with their hands but with their words, and to make a choice. Your job as a school is to protect my child, and you're not doing that. Bullying is sometimes in the too many hard baskets for schools, yes. What is really frustrating is that schools always have a non-bullying policy and they never fix the problem. I think that's true. Donnie Feed, hi, nice to see you. Teachers bully also. Schools lack professional development in inclusivity and diversity. I agree. I had a 6th grade teacher tell my daughter, I just wish she would leave Mars and come to Earth, and my daughter responded, then there is life on Mars too. I met with the superintendent and got a resolution. Good for you, Donnie Feed. That's great. They never work as there is no follow-up. Is it possible? Yes, you can access the replay. Janice, blessed to have a school community that takes time to listen and support our son's need. He had experienced bullying, but he is brave to call out the behavior and to inform us about it. He is supportive. He is with supportive and understanding teachers and a school support group from Auckland. Fantastic. Isman, they are not doing anything. When he reports the specific bullies, they get hugged by the teachers and he gets yelled at. One teacher told him he was a tattleteller. Whoa. Isman, I don't know what to say except, can you transfer to a different school? And perhaps to have a meeting with an advocate. See, I think if kids are being bullied and the schools aren't doing anything about it, because your child has an ADHD diagnosis, particularly, you could get a school advocate to come in and meet with you and the school, because they're not doing their job. And particularly teachers are not doing their job. And I think that your rights are being violated because your child's rights are being violated. So we want to really get a sense of what are the special education laws that would protect your child and what's the violation. Susan, Helen, excuse me. I'm pleased to say the school I currently work in are very proactive in stopping bullying and resolving issues among children. Fantastic. Beautiful. We do as well in Brisbane. Wonderful. Bullying is such a big spectrum. Yes, it is. Cassandra, my daughter has pulled teachers aside a few times in private and told them what she has observed to help kids who are being bullied. Good for her. Good for her. Okay. Bernadette, how my kid will not put her phone down for 5 minutes. We see her getting so angry and striking out at home. I think if your kids can't put their phones down, then you need to put their phones down for them, which is to set some limits around phone use, because if the phone use is perpetuating a particular type of bullying or inappropriate behavior, then you have to step in as your adult self and say, phones are limited to this time only, and we'll have to deal with your FOMO the rest of the time. How can you help your child change if you know they are being bullies in school? That's a great question, Verena. Let's get to that question. So, whoops, hello. For some reason I have something. Okay. So how do we help kids respond to being bullies? So if you know that your child is being aggressive, then I think that one of the things that we want to do is to get some counseling for your child and find out, why is it that they're doing this? They obviously are feeling insecure, scared, maybe bad about themselves, or they may feel threatened. So we want to try to unpack the behavior. The behavior's on top. What's underneath? We've got to get to those layers. And sometimes that can be in family counseling or individual counseling or working with a social worker at school. We want to understand what's happening in the school environment that your child is acting this way. The struggle is girls and how they are struggling with physical appearance and how they all change at different rates, and then bullying happens and they feel self-conscious. Yes, it is very hard. How do adults end up bullying other adults? They were bullied as children, or did they bully themselves? Adults bully other adults because they feel threatened by them, because that's my understanding. Because adults are kids grown up. I mean, I have to tell you that I don't know if I ever shared this with you, but I experienced bullying as a 40-something-year-old. I was at the soccer thing with my son, and I had the boys, and went up to the mothers and I said, hey, what are you doing after the game? And they said, we're not sure. And they kind of like closed the group. And then I stood there for a few minutes and I said, Can I join you? And the woman turned around and she looked right at me and she said, we all don't have to do the same thing. And I was like, whoa, whoa, you're messing with the wrong person. I walked away. I mean, I was hurt. That was hurtful because I'd been bullied as a sixth grader. So I have that experience, though, that memory, that body memory, that emotional memory. And there was another woman who seemed pretty nice. They were kind of out on their own. And I said, hey, I went up to them. You want to get lunch and take the boys to the beach? And they were like, yeah, we don't have anything to do. And so we did something together, which was interesting because that night after the Mean Girl group saw that the three of us were talking and another mom joined us, so now there were four of us, they're like, oh, now we want to go make friends with them because, you know, there's another group. We want to make sure that, you know, we're going to pick that apart. It was really very interesting and kind of really disturbing as an adult to experience that. But you know, they didn't come to me and say, oh, hey, you know, we want you to join us. They went to some of these other mothers who weren't really that interested in joining their group. So that was good. But that is one way bullying can, just one small example. I'm sure you all have many of them of how bullying can happen at the workplace. Sexual harassment is a form of bullying. Racial discrimination is a form of bullying. I mean, we could go on and on. Homophobia. You know, all of these things emerge in adulthood. Marcia, our 12-year-old daughter has been bullied for more than 2 years, as known by the private school administration, but they never notified us. Now trying to get the adults to intervene in the bullying, but their response is to try to blame our daughter and our bad parenting so they can claim her to be the villain to their powers that be, organization CYA. Yep. Our daughter is adopted and suffers from FASD, is at least 3 cognitively years younger than classmates. The school administration says their goal is to support our socially emotionally delayed daughter in advocating for herself rather than teaching other 40 neurotypical kids to be responsible for their own bullying activity. That is terrible. We had to hire a very expensive private therapist to work with our daughter about her deep-seated adoption-related trauma, but those efforts cannot go forward until we succeed in getting our daughter out of this private school. Well, now we've got an educational advocate working with us, but our daughter is still suffering. I'm so glad you have the advocate, and I'm sorry to hear about that. That is unconscionable. Gareth, create space in the mind, nature, meditation, mindfulness. Okay, let's see. Amy, teacher to student ratios need to be lower. There are too many students for one teacher to watch and know what is going on. There needs to be more, personal development for teachers on psychological issues. I agree, because the psychological issues are much greater than I think their teachers are being trained for. I like to remind myself when I deal with extremely immature, low EQ adults that the majority of people never leave middle school emotionally. Verena, can a child who is a chronic bully develop NPD? You know, I don't know about that. I like to be a little more hopeful that kids who are bullying because they're very insecure and they don't know how else to deal with their lack of self-confidence, even though they might act like they're really confident on the outside. On the inside, I think there's a lot of self-loathing and self-doubt. So I think when kids are chronic bullies, then it's absolutely worth making sure that they get into counseling. So before we stop, I want to talk about tools to help kids respond to bullying. Since bullies thrive on bystander complicity and victim passivity, we want to teach kids to learn to speak up for themselves as a key survival tool. It takes a lot of courage, but to calmly confront an aggressor. But that can be a very powerful intervention. What are some questions or phrases that your child can say in the moment? Can you do some role plays with them to practice these conversations, including how you would, talk to an adult, share information with an adult about a situation that isn't safe that you're witnessing? And that might be even just writing it down, not necessarily speaking to a person. We want to help our kids remember that they're not alone, but to point out who their true friends are and are making sure that they have times to get together with them. We want to brainstorm ways to ask others to stop gossiping or teasing them, or how they can leave an uncomfortable situation with some dignity. And lastly, we want to assist our kids in monitoring their own behavior, which could be provoking negative responses from others or be seen as aggressive in some way. So we want to be able to know in situations, we want to be able to help our kids notice, are they feeling uncomfortable? What are the choices that you have in that moment? If you are seeing someone being bullied, how could you sympathize with that target person? How would you feel in that situation? Is there something you could say at that time? Who can you speak to about a bullying situation that's a trusted friend or adult? It may be you, and you may need to advocate for your child. It probably will be you. Is there a way for, if your child is in a group of people who are targeting someone, for them to befriend the targeted person, even in a small way, at another time? It's hard to name the thoughts and feelings when you're when you're being the target of bullying, because you are in fight, flight, or freeze mode, and often it's freeze mode. And freeze mode is, sort of, lots of different theories about it, but freeze mode is really a shutdown mode, and it's hard to do anything from that mode. You're just trying to endure to get to the other side. So we want to be able to help kids notice when something is starting, when a bullying thing is starting, and brainstorm what their options are to remove themselves, or if they're in a group and it's happening, what their options are to prevent the bullying, or to make a choice that actually is consistent with who they think they are and what they believe. Because telling is not tattling. Telling can be the right choice of someone who is in trouble, either in physical or mental trouble, because harm is being caused to them. You are seeing something happen to someone and you are reporting it. So we have personal responsibility, all of us in society, to be an upstander. Thank you, Michelle. And personal responsibility means sticking with your values, your empathy, and having compassion. What prevents bullying, in particularly in terms of bystanders, is being clear about who you are, having a strong sense of yourself, being able to be a friend, having at least one good friend who's there for you, who reminds you that you have value and you're not alone in the world. So all of these things can be helpful in confronting bullying, in managing bullying, and adapting to it. Okay, does anyone have any more questions or comments that you would like to share about what it is to be a bystander? Any other bullying questions, how to cope with it, or anything else that my comments may have stirred up for you? Maria, what can you do if the teacher tells the children to stop and they don't stop, and they're in the same classroom of your son, and then your son gets blamed because he took action? Mine says it's hard for him to tell on them when I've been working with him for a while. So I think that I would say, well, if the teacher's told the kids to stop and they don't stop, and you're in a situation where kids are stopping, we need to sit down with your teacher and someone from the school and figure out what your option is in that moment. Because if you take action and then you're the one who gets in trouble, then they get off scot-free. Megan Ann says, what about the kid who doesn't have a friend? So I think that it's hard for lots of kids with ADHD to make friends, but usually, God willing, I believe that there is one person out there, maybe two, who your child could be friends with. and they may need you to help facilitate those friendships. Maybe it's a cousin, maybe it's a neighbor, maybe it's a family friend, and they see this person, they don't go to the same school, but they're a friend who doesn't live in town but lives close by. Someone who they feel like they can hang out with sometimes. It's really important for kids with ADHD to have parents who can help facilitate some sort of social relationships. I'm not talking about helicopter parenting or drone parenting. I'm talking about maybe inviting another family over for pizza and a movie where the kids are the same age, and you can assist them in, playing a game, or they're together at least in the same space. It's hard for a lot of neurodivergent kids to make friends. So helping create the environment for that is very useful. Okay. Reality is, in the kind of school environment I worked in, a lot of children are in the standard academic or psychological things just don't work. Okay, thank you. In fact, some of them might get seriously hurt or killed. So each situation must be looked at carefully. Yes, and individually, because some of the things I'm saying may apply to you and some of the things may not apply to you. The woman who shared that someone put a knife to her kid, that's a very different kind of situation. That's beyond bullying. That's assault. And so the fact that the school and the police or whoever didn't do anything, and the parents came and aggressively confronted them, to me that's a whole different level of danger than the woman who said that her kid was being teased because she's a vegan. There's safety, there's there's physical safety, there's emotional safety. We have to gauge what the situation is. I'm not saying that we take one more seriously than the other. I'm just saying they're different on a spectrum of bullying and cruelty. Teresa, because my kid's past, he gets blamed after someone bullies him and he reacts. Right. So one of the things that happens for kids with ADHD is because they are so quick to react, because they struggle with impulse control and emotional regulation, they will often be blamed for things that aren't their fault. Like they've done something or someone's provoked them, and the other kids provoke neurodivergent kids because they know they're going to get a rise out of them, and they think it's fun or funny, and then they don't get in trouble. So again, I think in this situation, I would really work with your kid, or find someone who can help you work with your kids to respond differently in a situation, and to really hold the school, hold their feet to the fire, get an advocate. If you need to get a lawyer in some of these situations that you're sharing, they're just terrible. So it's not okay that your kids are getting targeted and blamed for bullying, but it makes sense because they're quick to react, and so then the attention comes back to them, and the other people kind of walk away. Bernadette, it seems like there is no respect in society these days. The kids do not respect society, authority, yada, yada, but sadly, they do not respect themselves. I think that's true, Bernadette, and that is sad. Kate, my daughter is soft-hearted. How do you teach girls to be strong and resilient? You can tell them things and how they should be, but how do you build that in them to act more confident, not to look weak or soft? Well, Kate, I have to say that I think that Rachel Simmons has written a number of books that are really great about helping girls become strong and resilient. And Lisa Damour has also written some great books, so I would check them out. Michelle, if I was a teacher of I Saw a Solo student, I would team them up with another classmate for projects and provide an opportunity for positive socialization on the playground. Exactly. That's exactly right, Michelle. We want us to be able to say to teachers, in this class, who's a person who's like my kid? Who's someone my child is interested in? Let's put them together. Let's put their desks together. Let's put them on a project so that my child can be with someone who's like them, and they can develop some sort of connection. Helen, having positive experiences, interactions with you all help build your child self-esteem. Exactly. Reason we moved. Janice. Right here, babe. As usual, great meeting. I've told my son about you and hopefully he will learn a lot. Thank you for having empathy and a good heart to help people. It's my truly great pleasure and privilege. Will counseling help even if they don't take meds? For bullying, I think so, yes. Yes, it will help because it's a positive interaction with an adult. And Helen's right here because what we're looking for is to nurture the capacity for a relationship to be seen and accepted for who you are. And counseling will help with that. Cognitive therapy is also excellent, and that will help with your behaviors. If they've had 2 years of counseling and it hasn't worked, then it might not be the right counselor. Cassandra, I help my kids recognize their behaviors that could seem as off as pudding, and I help them develop a different behavior. So many times I had no idea what I was doing that was making me the odd one out. Yeah, and Rachel Simmons, I think, wrote a book called Odd One Out. So I really encourage you to check out her work. Of course, there are other books. I can't really put them all out here right now, but I think it's important to do a little bit of reading. I'm thinking about Rosalind Wiseman's work and her project as well. So I would check both of them out. I'll write their names here. Rachel Simmons. All right. Well, thank you so much. This has been such a really powerful group. I'm moved. I'm so moved by your sharing. And Michelle is saying you're the child advocate for your local domestic violence agency and you go to schools to address bullying awareness and cope with bullying. And there is money. There is money for schools to do bullying prevention. So that's national money in the United States. So that's something. Anyway, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for sharing your stories. And I wish you a wonderful weekend. I will not be here next week, so we won't be meeting next week, but we'll be back the week after. Thank you and have a good weekend.